actions of a building that's going up, at least the people who are constructing that building, whether it's your home they're building or a big skyscraper. Now, many of these taxes, permits, and licenses and fines and fees do not even pay for the cost of collecting them. Well, in spite of the fact that that is $615 and somebody say as much as $640 million, if these licenses, permits, fees, and fines paid for the cost of and also maybe paid for some of the other things that the department does, then they would bring us some more funds. You and I'd be paying some more money, no doubt about it. But the bottom line of what this whole program is about is that this city does need more money. Now hold your horses. I'm going to get to the fact that the city isn't the most efficient operating company in the world. But there are a lot of ways in which these funds are justified. The sales tax, if you recall, a few years ago, we wanted to raise the sales tax from 8.25% to 8.75%. The idea was that if we did that, we'd have some more money to get some more policemen. Well, back then we had 9,100 sworn badged policemen, guys with a badge on their shoulder. And now we have a little over maybe 1,000 badged police people, and we're getting more and more of them all the time. Every one of those policemen costs you and me $100,000 a year. So 1,000 new policemen costs us another $100 million a year. It's expensive, but I'm glad to see those guys here. It's a question of whether you and I are willing to pay that for them and even realize that that's what we're paying for. Now, so if we wanted to, we could vote a larger sales tax up to 8.75%, and that would get us another $250 million, according to the way our sales taxes run. Whether that money would be going now for new police or for and utility tax or not is open to question. I want to talk now about what are called the transfer taxes. Now, transfer taxes, where is it here? Here's the zero. The water comes in two parts: water revenue transfer, and I'll explain why it's zero now, and there's power revenue transfer, about $180 to $185 million. Well, this used to be $30 to $35 million until a judgment of the court last spring came down that said a city in Northern California could not get a water revenue transfer from their water department in their area. Well, the people in this city and our city attorneys, our legal counsel, said, well, then we can't either. Last year, we didn't get the $30 million we wanted to get from. And this year, we're not going to get it either, and next year and every year to come. So that's a $30 million hit that our budget has taken. Where are we going to make up the difference? Motor license fees might be added to, or other kinds of fees might be added to, but we can't look to the Department of Water and Power for this. Now, I've been told by the CAO in the previous programs that you may have seen last week or the week before, that the $184 million that was the power transfer is from money from our electricity bills, that one is legal. But a recent request by the Department of Water and Power to increase their power rates has been met by the Oversight Committee in Power MOU people, and they have decided that they do not want the transfer to go on either for water or for power. So it may be that we will lose even this 184 if the city council takes the recommendation of the oversight committee of the group that coordinates the information between the Department of Water and Power and the neighborhood councils. So the neighborhood councils are getting more and more active in advising the city and taking a very active role in making some very specific, and in this case, one of the very important recommendations that could affect our bills for our water and power, the amounts of money that the water and power people have to spend on their expenses, and the amounts that the city has to spend on its expenses. Now, one more thing that's on this page, and it comes down to our reserve fund. Well, that's our savings account. If you're like I am, I have a checking account that I pay for things, for bills that come into my mailbox every day, and I'm sure you do too. But then I also have a savings account. And that savings account, I keep extra money there for emergencies and for other long-term plans. Well, the city has such a savings account. It's called a reserve account. Well, this year, the city is going to send $93 million out of their reserve account to make up the difference between their income that they're getting from other sources and the amount of money they need to run the city. Well, that's fine. That's what that money's for. That's what you'd use your savings account for. If you need to buy a new refrigerator in your house, you may have to dip into your savings account to do it. Fine. Your kids are getting ready to go to college. You want to pay their tuition? Hopefully you've been saving up for their college. All right? The problem is that we only had about $180 million in our savings account before July 1st. And as of July 1st, we knocked $93 million out of that. We borrowed on some bonds for $25 million. Well, without going into all the numbers, we now only have about $113 million in our savings account. With the added $25 million I just mentioned, maybe 138, but part of that is a loan. You don't put loans on your savings account because you can't use it in case you need it for an emergency. Now, if we had an emergency, if we had a big fire that didn't go around the edges of the civilization as it did in Griffith Park, didn't go around the edges of civilization as it did with a fire a couple of years ago that started up in Chatsworth and went all the way down to Pacific Coast Highway. Homes. Both of those fires did. But we could have another flood like they had in Watts a couple of years ago. We could have another earthquake as we had in 1994 or 1971. We're earthquake country, folks. And those could cost us a huge amount of money. And at this point, I don't think we have, and I'm just voicing a personal opinion, we haven't got any reserve fund to do it. Do we want to look like Katrina in New Orleans, where they're still trying to fix things and looking to the federal government to fix it for them, and they haven't gotten out of their problem after 2 years? Well, we need to be more self-sufficient here in Los Angeles. And I'm going to now go to another side of the issue here, because we do have some additional areas where we could get some more money. And now if we look at my little chart here, I'm going to show. Well, in the past 2, 3, 4 years, you've seen on Department of Water and Power bills, or you've heard about it in the newspaper, that we now have a solid waste resources fund, and that's for the charges of picking up our trash in those blue, green, and black barrels that are in front of our homes, also for picking